round 2 of making monster masks. Okay. Live stream round 2. So, I guess I should wait for it. I guess I should wait for people to show up. If you show up, let me know you showed up, because I don't know how this thing works, and I don't know if anybody's actually seeing this. So, basically, I am going to show you guys how to cast a mask out of a 2-piece ultracal mold. I'm going to show you guys how to... Hey, Noah! Man! Good to see you. You know, I've looked for you on Facebook quite a few times. Could never find you, so I'm happy you found me. I'm also going to show you guys prep for casting in latex. Super easy, super simple stuff. I'm also going to show you guys, I was really surprised by how many people asked to see this, how to actually tie a mold strap properly. Alright, because I was just really surprised by how many people asked to see that. So, first things first, I'm going to flip my camera around and I'm going to kind of show you my setup here so that you guys kind of get an idea of what I am going to do. So, alright, so I've got my chair. I have a canvas drop cloth here. The reason I chose canvas is because it's a very thick material. It's also really cheap. You can get, this is actually doubled over, it's twice as large as this. But you can get this at about $15 at Lowe's or Home Depot. And you can reuse it. The latex, if you spill any on there, once it dries, will peel right up because the material is so thick, it doesn't absorb into the fabric. I've got my bucket, my mold strap. I have something I can set my mold in when I'm not pouring layers, something that I can use to kind of turn it upside down itself. I'm just using an old flower pot. It's super cheap, foam flower pot. You can use anything. I've used storage tubs, I've used empty cardboard boxes, just whatever you want. And then I also have a smaller tub here that I will get to in a second. 2-piece ultracal mold, so there's that. And yeah, you know, and of course, wear your shop clothes. Wear something that you don't mind getting stuff all over. This includes your pants, this includes your shoes, this includes everything. Because you will get rubber on you or resin on you or whatever you're doing. And so it's very important to not just show up wearing your favorite pair of pants, your favorite t-shirts. Just wear stuff that you don't mind getting stuff all over, because it's going to happen. Alright, so the first things first, I'm going to show you guys how to strap a mold. So, super quick, super easy. The first thing you want to do, you want to have your mold prepped and ready to go. This includes removing any type of debris that may have built up on the mold wall itself. You can see I've got a little bit of latex there, so I'm going to scrape that off. You just run your hands along it, make sure that it's nice and even and smooth. You're going to do this on both sides of the mold. What that does is it ensures a nice tight lock whenever you put your mold halves together, so that you don't have any more of a seam than you're used to. This mold is also quite dry. I've let it sit out for about a day in front of a fan. I do that because it makes casting a lot easier. You can cast a whole thick mask in just a couple of hours as long as your mold is dry and not holding any moisture. So, typically, this is where you start to brush in layers of latex. For this particular mask, because the surface area is so smooth, I don't do that. And I'll tell you why here in a second. So, you're going to line up your keys. You guys see this? Line up your keys, just like so, until everything kind of sits and falls into place. Alright. Then you're going to get your mold strap. So while this is sitting right there, so where it's not going to fall, the proper way to tie a mold strap so that you have great leverage is very simple. I'm just going to undo this. Got a little bit of rubber on the end of it, so it's taking just a little bit longer. I typically don't undo my mold straps all the way, because you don't really have to in order to get them off. Okay, it's not going to come out all the way. So your mold strap starts like this. The buckle right there. So what you do, turn the buckle upside down so that it looks like this, so that it's laying flat against the strap. You're going to take the end of your mold strap, the opposite end, the opposing end, and here we go. You're going to stick it through this first hole right here. So, stick it through, pull it through. All right, now once it's through, you have this. You're going to take the same end that you just stuck through that hole, and going in the opposite direction, you're going to stick it through this hole. So, like I said, there's a little bit of built-up rubber on the end of my mold strap. Just happens every time, and there you go. That's it. So now we have a strap that we can tighten or loosen super, super easily. And then when we go to crank it down, it's gonna get nice and Loctite in there, okay? So, I'm just gonna get this to a tightness that I want real fast. Also, you want to have some paper towels laying around. You want to have some stuff just for minor cleanup on your hands and stuff of that nature. So, all right. You also might want to have some masking tape laying around, just in case. Something I like to do once I strap a mold is I like to reinforce that strap with a little bit of tape over the top. This can be Gorilla Tape, this can be masking tape. Masking tape probably won't hold up as well, but you can use it. Can be just about any type of tape you want. Alright, so this rubber on the end of this mold strap is giving me a lot of trouble. You know what, I'm going to use another one. I have multiple, so give me just a second, and I will dig one out of my bin. So, you can also use tape to, I'm actually getting some spare Gorilla Tape too. So, alright. So, whenever you're strapping a mold, something you want to do is you want to pick a surface area on your mold that's relatively flat, so that whenever you crank this strap down, it's going to lock in place and not want to move or lift up like it would if it was on a curvature. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so I'm going to strap this. Excuse me, I burped. For this particular mold, I like to strap it right here on the corner just because it's a nice flat area. There aren't any little knobbies or nodules sticking out in the stone. No slightly uneven surfaces. So, I'm going to turn this around so you guys can see how I strap this. Basically just doing what I just did. So, you pull it tight. Right? Give yourself a little slack so you can make some micro adjustments to your strap if you need to. Like so. Alright, you pull it tight. I'm going to scoot it a little farther over. And we should be good to go. And before I strap this, I'm going to show you guys what it looks like on the back side. You want to make sure you have a nice even placement on your strap. It's not riding too low, it's not riding too high, so that whenever you put it under tension, it's not going to instinctively want to pull out in one direction. So, you do that, and like I said, you leave yourself a little slack so that you have some free range of motion. You have some tension in the strap, but also you don't have too much tension to where you can't move it. So what you got to do is take the buckle like this, get yourself a nice good handhold on the bottom of the mold, and push. Well, I broke my strap because it's all rubbery. It's okay, I'll use my other one. That one's an old one. Okay. Like I said, there is no right or wrong way to do this stuff. It just works the way it does. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. That is the benefit and also the curse of using a natural material like latex and like stone. So, stuff happens. I'm just strapping, again, just to show you, I'm strapping this in through the front, out through the back, just like that. Okay. All right. I'm going to slip this back on. Make sure your mold's still sitting where you want to sit. As far as the mold wall. Get yourself a nice, and like I said, give yourself some slack. You don't want too much tension in your strap, otherwise you'll break it. Yeah, man, I'm using my strong hands all right. Yeah, James Alfred mentioned strong rubber bands. They do make mold rubber bands that work really well. They're nice, thick, you know, about a ½ inch thick rubber bands for industrial mold making, and they work very well as well. So, okay, so now, same thing. I've got my lever here. I'm just gonna kind of grab the mold and push, and boom, there it is. It's locked on there. All right, actually, you know what? I'm gonna move it back a little bit. See, you guys thought that this was boring. All right. Okay, so I've got my flat area, a little bit of slack. Again, just to demonstrate, I've got a little bit of slack here. And I'm giving myself a little bit of slack in the strap. It locks down pretty tight, pretty easily. And so once it happens and you have a good, there it is. You kind of heard it click into place right there. That's on there. So this is where I tell you that I like to have a little bit of tape hanging around. And what I do is I put it over the top of that buckle and stick it to the mold, just like that. Rub it in, make sure it's nice and on there. And then some people like to take painter's tape, or painter's sticks rather, stir sticks, and stick in this little part right here, the back of the strap. What that does is it kind of reinforces this area right here, because if the strap pops off, it's going to pop in this direction, and putting something in there will keep that strap from lifting up because there's nowhere for this metal piece to go. But I don't typically do that. What I am going to do though is get a little bit more tape, and I'm going to reinforce the Gorilla tape that I just put on the front of this mold. You know, this is kind of old tape. This stuff's expensive, so I reuse it as much as I can. And just to show you what I'm doing here, I am just reinforcing that bond right there so that now if this strap does want to pop off, it has to not only pull at the tape from this direction, it has to pull at the tape on both sides from either direction as well. So, that's that. And if you do this right, you will notice the inside of your mold, the seam is super tight. Super, super tight. So, that's that. Alright, so now we're going to turn around and I'm going to switch positions on the camera a little bit so I can show you guys the next step. While we're doing that, I actually left my spray bottle out in the kitchen, so I'm going to go grab that real fast. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Okay, I'm back. See? That was fast. Alright, so what I have here is I have a spritz bottle with just a little bit of tap water in it. Now, some people use distilled water, and while I agree that distilled water is better for cutting latex, I think that tap water works just fine for what I'm about to do. And apparently, unbeknownst to me, this was pretty simple mask making 101. I just didn't know about this trick until about a month ago, and it helped me out a lot, and so I wanted to share it with you guys. This only works if you have like a bone dry mold though. If the mold is retaining any type of moisture, this won't really do you a whole lot of good. But all you want to do, and I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see this. This also only works best for really smooth surface areas like this. Doesn't really work a whole lot if you have something super hyper detailed with all this detail work and textures and stuff like that going on. Take a spritz bottle, spray the inside of that mold. And all you want to do is spray it just enough to cover the surface of the inside of the mold. You don't want to leave a whole lot of water pooling up in there. You know, you don't want to like soak it, you just want to spray it. And that's probably good. Now you want to leave this sitting for, I don't know, maybe a minute and a half, because since that mold is so dry, that water is going to absorb into that stone really quickly. And I'm actually going to leave the camera on it right here, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. You see it's still a little shiny, but that'll go away. You see it's almost kind of going away right in front of our face right now. Alright? Whew. So, that's it. Alright, you can see it's not so shiny anymore. It's almost quite dull. That means we're good to go. Now what this does is, this helps to eliminate air bubbles in your final casting. This helps to eliminate you having to brush in an area that you otherwise wouldn't take a long time brushing in. And again, I want to reiterate, this is just the way I do things. This is the culmination of different techniques and stuff that I've learned over the years from different people. And you kind of take what's useful, what's useful, and adapt it to your own needs. And you can see I'm cleaning the top of my bucket off here, so I don't have any areas where the latex might gravitate from the outside of the bucket or from the inside of the bucket to, you know, like to drip or spill. So I'm gonna pour this in here. I'm not gonna pour a whole lot. I'm gonna pour it and fill it to about, I would say, maybe a sixth of the way. You're just putting enough material in there so that you have enough to move around and coat the excess or the inside of the mold. So I also like to hold the bucket with my knee right here and with the handle up here, so that way I can keep this lid and this rim nice and clean. And again, this is all just kind of forward thinking. This makes sure that I don't waste any excess material. It also makes sure that when I put my lid back on top of the bucket, there is no excess material on the rim to keep the lid from sealing down nice and tight. And you know, when that happens, it essentially makes it to where, you know, your latex in your bucket will start to dry out a little bit. Okay, so I'm balancing this on my knee here. I'm gonna tilt it so you guys can see it. And all I'm doing is slushing this latex around. Now normally I would do this over the bucket, but I think that might be a little harder for you guys to see. So, I hope you guys can see this. I'm carrying it around, slowly rotating the mold. Not super fast. I'm wanting to ensure that every area inside the mold is getting proper contact with the material, so that I don't trap any air in any hyper detailed spaces or any undercuts. And I'm just going around the rim, kind of filling in these areas as I go, real slow. Giving the material time to get into every little nook and cranny, every little crease. And what the moisture on the inside of the mold does, what the water does, because the mold is so dry, as the water starts to absorb into the stone and grabs a hold of that rubber and pulls it in with it, to kind of eliminate the chance for any excess air bubbles. So, and that's about it. That's it. We have complete coverage. Now, I typically rotate this around 2 or 3 times just to make sure that everything's coated. You'll still see some small little pinhole air bubbles popping up here and there. That's totally normal. They probably won't be in the final casting. And if you see them, just run your latex over them a little bit. So, and that's it. So you see I've got the whole inside of the mold coated. You can kind of see the latex pulling around in there a little bit. So, thanks, James. I give credit to my mold making skills from my buddy Lance. Taught me how to make molds that lasted a long time while also weren't too sore on the eyes. And so now I have my bucket open. Let me see, hang on a second here. Let's try and readjust this so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing here. I've got my bucket of latex right here. How's that? Is that good? All right. And so all I'm going to do is I'll just pour this excess slowly back into the mold. Make sure you pour it slow. You don't want to, you have a little handle up here. You don't want to spill anything that you don't have to spill. Sure, a little latex on the floor here and there may not sound like a lot, but it adds up over time. And when you're paying for the materials out of your own pocket, you want to save everything you can. Nickels and dimes are still money. So, all right. Now this is the point where I have this lip on this mold. Every mold's different, but when I try to make molds, I always try to make sure I have a lip of some type so that I can set it directly on the bucket. Just like that. I can set it directly on the bucket. It's held in place. It's not going to fall in. And that allows it to sit and drain for a minute. And that's that. I'm going to take a little bit of Gorilla Tape. And I'm just going to take the excess material of the strap, wrap it around the mold a little bit, and just tape it to itself. That way I don't have to worry about the excess material of the strap. Hey, Matthias. That way I don't have to worry about the excess material of the strap getting in the way, falling in the bucket, and getting all rubbery and making itself brittle like the one that I broke earlier. And there. So I'm going to flip the camera around. This, guys, I hope you understand what I'm saying here, and I hope you smell what I'm stepping in. So I leave that, and I let that sit and drain for 5 or 10 minutes or so. You don't want to let it set too long, especially on the first layer, because the stone is so dry that it pulls in that moisture super fast. So you want to let it drain, but at the same time, not let it sit upright for a super long time, because eventually you'll start to get little drips and nodules running down from the inside of the mask on the interior of the mask, and you don't want that. So about 5 minutes or so. In the meantime, I'm going to put you here. Okay. So I hope that made sense to everybody. While that's working, it's magic. What I like to do is clean off my bucket lid, because there's a little rubber fitting on the inside rim of all of these buckets. And it almost always gets coated with rubber of some type whenever you're pouring latex or taking it out, taking the bucket off, it comes from the excess material being caught in the rim. So what I like to do is I like to pop this ring out and get rid of that. This is kind of just a clean as you go mentality. So I just take this is rubber, I just scrub all that rubber off. If you get a little latex on your hands, it's fine. I mean, if you have a latex allergy, it might be a little tough for you, but, hey, suck it up. You want to make masks, you got to make sacrifices. So, let's see. You can see I'm just going through everything, getting all this excess material off the inside of this fitting. The reason I'm doing this is because this fitting is what allows an airtight lock over the top of that bucket. So if you have all this crud on there, it's going to prevent your bucket from being airtight at the end of the day, and your latex will start to, dry out over time. It'll start to get real thick, and eventually it will become unusable if you don't stay on top of it. So now that that's clean, I'm going to set that to the side, and I'm going to clean off. You can see I've already peeled off quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and just peel off the excess rubber in here. because any rubber like that on the inside of this bucket lid is more likely to attract more rubber. If you're moving the bucket around while it's closed, it'll stick right there and dry out. It's more likely to attract more rubber than the actual plastic is. So, cleaning off the bucket, putting my excess on the floor on top of my tarp so I can throw it away later. This also is good practice, especially if you're working out of your house like I am and you want to make sure you get your security deposit back whenever it is you want to move. Also make sure that your lady doesn't slaughter you at the end of the day from getting stuff everywhere. The benefit is, because this is latex, when it dries you can peel it right up, just like this. So, it's pretty good. And again, this is just me kind of being obsessive. I learned from other artists that this matters, and it does. So, when that's done, I'm going to pop this fitting back into the bucket lid just like this. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to make sure we have a nice airtight lock on our bucket at the end of the day so that we don't have to worry about losing any material. Everything that you're seeing here is just the culmination of trial and error over the course of many years, over the course of many jobs. That's how I learned this stuff. And like I said, as the old adage goes, Bruce Lee, take what is useful and leave what's not. So that's all this is. All right, so I've set that down. This has been over there for about 4 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the camera back around and show you guys the next step. So, all right there. Now I'm going to turn this way so you can see. Whenever you lift this up, you're going to have a little bit of material because this mold's kind of sitting at a 45-degree angle on here because it's such a small mold. You're going to have a little bit of excess material. See it? Dripping out of the back right there. So while you're holding this up, go ahead and pour that out. So, hey Jim, it's all right, man. It's good to have you. You don't have to worry about being late. It's fine. You missed some shenanigans in the beginning, but it's cool. So, I went ahead and poured that out. I'm going to take my finger, rake it across the bottom of this right here, because again, this is usable material. We don't want to waste anything. I know it's such a small, negligible amount of material, but you cast 40 or 50 masks over the course of a few months, maybe less, maybe more, and every little bit that you don't use or that you don't save adds up real fast. So it's also worth noting that whenever I get latex on my fingers, I just kind of rub it off away from the bucket. You don't want these cured pieces of latex inside of your raw latex because they can affect the integrity of your finished mask. So now that that's done, I'm going to turn this way so you can see my little flower bucket. And I dropped the phone. Okay. So, sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to turn it this way. And what I like to do is, I learned this from a guy named Lance, who is amazing. If you see any little pinhole air bubbles, I'm just blowing them out with my mouth, just to kind of disperse them. So, set it upside on its back. The reason we do this, and I hope you can see it, I don't know if you will be able to or not, but if we were to just take this up and set it upside down and let it cure, there's a lot of excess material that gets trapped in the chin because this mask particularly has a deep chin. This also has a rather large nose. A lot of that material gets caught in the nose while the mask and the mold is upright. So we turn it around and lay it on its back on an even surface or inside the lid of a bucket or something else that would accommodate it. And we let that set for a minute so that all the excess material in the chin and in the nose will drain out into the back of this head. And the reason we do that is so we make sure that none of that excess material starts to pool, because if you pool a lot of liquid latex in a certain area over a long period of time, it can take a long time to dry in comparison to the rest of the mask. It can also cause some warping after the fact whenever you guys get ready to pull these masks out of the mold. And I mean, the worst case scenario is that area of the mask doesn't dry completely, and you don't know that because it's trapped underneath the cured material. So, and again, we typically let that set for about 5 or 10 minutes, maybe a little less depending on the size of the mask. So, does anybody have any questions so far? Because this is kind of where we're at, and this is kind of the hurry up and wait part of it. Jim, what plaster did you use for this? New to doing latex pulls, I've used plaster of Paris. Jim, this is UltraCal 30. It's a gypsum cement. It's kind of hard to get unless you're going through an industrial supplier or someplace like Reynolds Advanced Materials or Smooth On. It's not terribly expensive, but it can be expensive to ship. Now, if you're using plaster of Paris, like you said, hey Lou, how you doing? If you're using plaster of Paris, that's okay. You can actually, a lot of mask artists use plaster of Paris. A lot of mask artists use UltraCal. A lot of mask artists use just straight pottery plaster. There are different strokes for different folks. There's no 100% right way to do this. Noel Gutierrez wants to know how much 5 gallons of latex costs. I get this locally. Luckily there's a Reynolds Advanced Materials location about 20 minutes away. Sorry, I'm reading the comments. So I pay about $125 to $130 per bucket, and I'm able to pull about 40 masks per bucket. So you're not looking at a whole lot of cost. Now, if you ship that though, if you live somewhere where there isn't a supplier around, and if you have to ship that, I don't know. It's also worth noting that latex cannot be shipped during the winter months, especially if you live in an area where there is a lot of cold weather, a lot of ice or snow, because latex, since it is a natural material, can freeze, and it most likely will. And so a lot of places just don't even offer the shipping in the winter months just because they don't want to have to deal with it. So back to the mold making. I can tell you pottery plaster will break down faster over time. Pottery plaster and plaster of Paris are most commonly used for production molds or copy molds, as they're called. Whenever you're in production mode and you want to, let's say for instance, if you sell some stuff and let's say you have to make 10 copies of one mask and you don't want to keep using the same mold over and over, because even UltraCal, as strong as it is, will begin to break down over time. So you want to preserve that as much as possible, so you make a copy mold. You do that by making a really thick master copy in latex. Oh, I'm fancy. All right, so you use a really thick latex copy, something that's hollow that you can kind of collapse like a bag once it's done. And a lot of people choose to make those copy molds out of pottery plaster or plaster of Paris because it's cheap, it's easy, and it is very cost effective, and it also absorbs latex and moisture a lot faster than regular UltraCal does, so you're able to pull copies much faster. The only downside to that is, because it is a cheaper material and it is a softer material, it does break down much faster than regular UltraCal is. Now the trade-off is, it's a copy mold, so you don't have to worry about losing your master mold and not being able to produce that piece ever again, because you can always just make another copy mold. So it's kind of a balancing act, you know. I would say I prefer to use mold making, I prefer to make my molds out of UltraCal, but that's just because of what I know. And up until this point, I haven't had the necessity in my professional life to use any other material yet. I might in the future, and so that's why I know these things, because I try to think about that stuff before it comes. So that's that. That's my spiel. Does anybody else have any questions? Because we're about to get back to the mask. Anybody else? Bueller? No? Okay, that's fine. So, I'm going to move the camera back over to its home with the latex. Alright, so, if you guys have been watching since the beginning, you'll remember that I have this smaller travel container over here, and this is why. So I have a bit of excess material that is pulled in the back of this mold that is drained out of the nose and the chin, and this is what I do with that. I'm going to move my bucket out of the way. I'm going to put my travel case in the way where the bucket was, and so you can see that. And the reason I do this is because I have this material in the back of this mold now, and I need to get it into the back of the bucket So I need to take what the mold was sitting at a 45-degree angle, which caused a lot of material to pull down here. I need to make the mask sit almost at an opposite angle to make sure that all this drains. So I put the lip at the back of the mold right there, put the chin on the front, and see it keeps the back almost completely vertical into the bucket. And the excess material that was draining out into the back of the head will now roll down the back of the head and into the bucket. So I'm going to turn this around so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. I don't know if you can see that. See it dripping? Now I know it just looks like a little bit right now. It's a drip, 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 drip. But again, like I said, you leave this sitting here for 5 or 10 minutes, and that drip will probably be enough to fill a small saucer. That's a lot of material. That's material that you don't want to waste. That's material that could eventually be another mask. You know, so you're cutting your costs by doing it. And that's that. That's the first layer. So typically with this stuff, I prefer my pieces nice and thick, kind of like the ones that I showed you. Actually, I have a couple more back here. You can see this is pretty thick latex. And you achieve this, I achieve this, by doing 3 layers. I do exactly what I just did 3 times. I wait for about 25 or 30 minutes in between, at least for the first and second layer. For the third layer, sometimes it takes a little bit longer because there's more material in there now, and it takes a little bit longer to cure. So that's pretty much that. I do want to talk about, I wanted to make it a point to talk about other casting methods, because like I said, there is no formula to this stuff. There's no 100% guaranteed way to do something that will work every single time that you do it. There's only, you know, what works best for us. I do things this way because this is the way that I've adapted what I've learned over the years in order to make this happen. And it works best for me. I know some artists that brush in everything. And what happens when you brush in everything, it works a lot for your highly detailed pieces. But what happens is, especially with a chip brush, I don't have a chip brush right now because I don't typically use them unless I'm making a mold. What happens is, see how tightly wound these bristles are? That's because this is a relatively nice brush. A chip brush is not. If you're familiar with 1-inch chip brushes, the bristles are really spread out, they're really loose, and what happens is there's a lot of air trapped inside those bristles already. And so even though you're dipping your brush in latex and brushing it into the mold, when you're using a chip brush, you're actually introducing more air bubbles and more air into the mixture than there ever was to begin with in the first place. So if I have to use any type of detail coat, I like to use my hands to just kind of rub in there. This is another technique that I learned from a good buddy of mine. To just rub in, you know, you don't really have to do a lot. You just want to kind of really lightly rub those areas in. It allows the latex to get into all those detailed areas while at the same time removing from the equation the accidental introduction of air bubbles or of air, because air is the enemy. To quote Multiplicity. All right, so it's still dripping. And again, like I said, you guys saw earlier how fast that was dripping. It's still dripping. So that, you know, like I said, it doesn't look like a lot of material is coming out of that mold, but there is. And over time that builds up, saves you money. So I'm gonna use a paper towel here. Again, I go through paper towels like Guy Fieri goes through heart transplants. So you just wanna do this. I like to keep my hands clean. I like to keep my area clean, as clean as I can, because it is my house, and I don't want to walk in here every day to just a mess. So that's pretty much that. It's almost done. It's almost done. And I hope, you know, I don't hope that there are air bubbles, but I hope that there's at least something in there so I can show you guys how, you know, using your fingers to remove air bubbles really works. I hope there's something in there. I know last time when I was trimming a mask, I was kind of hoping that I would have to deal with the lamination so that you guys knew what that looked like, but it didn't happen. So, okay, So it's done draining. Oh, we have one. Sweet. We have a little air bubble. So I'm going to hold the camera with one hand. I'm going to turn into the light. So, I hope I can do this with the camera in one hand. So, I'm going to turn this way. You see, right there on this bottom corner, right around here, there's a bubble. See it right there? Right there. We're going to fill that in real fast with my finger and a little bit of latex. So I'm going to take my finger right here. I'm going to dip it into the bucket, get a little bit on my finger, and then real gently, I'm going to reach in there and fill that bubble in. Boom, done. Just like that. Let me get the latex. See, sometimes you get latex on your hands. It's fine. So, and see right down in there, right here. It's not there anymore. It's gone. We just filled that in. Now, what would have happened if we would have used a very large brush or even a smaller brush? It would have been kind of hard to gauge how much pressure we had to put on it in order to not introduce air into it. And we probably would have just introduced a new air bubble anyway in trying to fix the old one. So that, we don't do that. It's gone. It's fixed. So, and again, if you see any little micro air bubbles on the inside surface of the mask, they're not going all the way through the latex, but just blow on them with your mouth, or if you have a small can of compressed air, or even a small hair dryer on a low heat setting, you can just wisp it around real fast. And that's going to disperse the air bubbles in the inside of that cast. So, just like that. You know, and if you see any areas where, you know, you can just kind of rub your finger over the surface on the inside. I know a lot of you people are like, you don't touch the inside of the mask, what are you doing? But it works. So, all right, that's that. So now I'm going to set this down. Now, since we've already set it upright, on its back, and at a 45-degree angle. So now we have a lot of material that has since shifted to the bottom of the mask. So to ensure even thickness, we're going to turn it upside down. So some of that material has the ability to go down deep into the mask and in the mold like it originally was. So this is typically where I let my masks cure for about 20 or 30 minutes. Not too much. You don't want it to be completely cured in that mold because you still want to have the ability to add more latex in there without having to worry about delamination on the back end. Just cleaning my hands off. You get a little latex in your hair, just pull it out, it's fine. If you get a lot of latex in your hair, use Dawn dish soap, or any type of dish soap really. It's got a ingredient in it, most dish soaps do. Pretty much any dish soap that is also a degreaser has an ingredient inside of it that likes to get up under the latex for some reason and it separates it from the hair. You can just slide it right off like a sock. And that's that. Okay, so I'm going to turn this around. And I'm going to turn this around. So, you can see, that's basically it. You can see there's not any, I got a small little bubble on the inside right there. That's not going all the way through though. That's just on the top, on the interior of the latex. That's from one that I blew out. And blowing out those small bubbles on the inside, whenever you introduce fresh latex into them, it fills them in. You can see it's pretty clean though. So far, so good. Now, if we had tried this without brushing in the latex and without spritzing it with water, there would be air bubbles riddled all over. And to show you what I mean, I actually did a small test to see how it would work. And this is what they look like. You get air bubbles everywhere. Look at that. You know, just to see what would happen. This one's a little thinner than I usually do them. Just to show you, you get air bubbles all over the place. So, just to prove to you that it works. Spritzing them with water works. Now, it only works on super dry molds. Like I said, I had that one sitting out for about a day so that everything evaporated out of it. So, I think that's pretty much it for now. I think that's good. I think we have accomplished what we set out to accomplish. Does anybody else have any questions? Anybody? Because I think I'm done. Unless you guys want me to show you something else that pertains to this, maybe? Anybody? Because I think I'm done. I don't have anything. Jim wants to see the steps in plastering a Sculpt. In other words, molding a Sculpt. I don't have anything that I can mold right now. I don't have anything ready to mold, but when I do, I would definitely love to do that. So that would be on the agenda for sure. So I'm just going to scroll through these comments to see if I missed anything. So, let's see. Wow, you guys are super nice. Thanks for all the positive feedback. Thanks for all the, I don't know. You guys made me feel special. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. I'm definitely enjoying doing this. It really just, I don't know, it makes me happy. So, in doing this type of stuff, you know, I work from home now, like I said, so it's motivating. It keeps me motivated. Not that I'm not unmotivated, but I know some days I just want to play video games or whatever, you know. So now, no problem, Matt. I'm glad you liked it. Thanks for watching. I want to do more of these. I may not get the opportunity to do another one until after the holidays. We're actually leaving on Thursday to go back to the homeland of Mississippi and see my folks and my fam. So that'll be fun. But what do you guys want to see next? I know we want to see, Jim wants to see a mold making tutorial. That'll be a long one. That'll take some time, but I can make it happen. Is there anything else that anybody wants to see? You guys want to see painting? Do you guys want to see, let's see. Yeah, I'll share them around. And, no problem, Mark. Mark says he couldn't watch the whole thing. It's fine. It'll be here. It's here. It's public. It's on my Facebook page. It's on my timeline. And, in January, I'll be launching a YouTube tutorial channel, so it'll all be up there. That's pretty much it, though. Yeah, I'll do a painting one for sure. A lot of people ask me how to get super fine lines and super fine detail, and it's a lot easier than you would think it would be, at least for me, in the way that I've learned how to do it. It's super simple, and you get amazing, amazing results. I have a couple of pieces. You know what? That's a story for a different day. So maybe after the holidays, you know, maybe the week after Christmas or something, I'll throw up a painting tutorial. So, all right, guys. I appreciate everybody who looked, everybody who thought this was cool, everybody who watched. It means the world to me, and I'm just glad you guys dig it. So, I just want everybody to know that you can do this type of stuff out of your house. You can do it out of your garage. You can do it out of any space that you have available. If you have the drive to do this as a living, you can make it work. You can make it happen. It's all a mental thing. As long as you have the right mindset, you can make anything possible. I haven't been in a studio, in a proper studio, for the past 2 months, and before that, there were periods where I worked out of my kitchen in a 700 square foot apartment that was, I mean, honestly, the kitchen was probably half the size of this room. And I worked out of that space for years. You know, I sculpted things for feature film, music videos, television, private collectors, my own personal products to push and sell in order to make ends meet. And it worked. I made molds in my bathtub, for crying out loud. Put a tarp down, make a mold. It happens. You can make it happen. Where there's a will, there's a way. And that's what I want people to understand by watching this. I'm literally in a spare bedroom of my house. I don't have anything else to do other than do this all the time. So, oh, that's okay. I mean, I'm doing okay on my own right now. You know what I mean? So, to be honest, I've been able to pay every single bit of my bills for the past 2 months, plus some left over, and that's no small feat. That's getting too personal. More personal than I want to be. Anyway, you can make it happen. You can make it happen. So that's all I want people to know. If you want to do this type of stuff, you can make it happen. It is attainable. All you got to do is do it. So that's it for me. I'm out. I'm so happy that you guys enjoyed the video, and I can't wait to do another one. So if you like what you see, even if you didn't get a chance to watch this live, go on down into the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have another method that is different from this, that you want to... Oh, I thought we got cut off. If there's a different method that you want to tell me about. So, let me know. All right, guys. Peace.